Hannibal is one of the best horror TV series to binge-watch. While the genre has been popular in the movie world for decades, horror TV generally had less budget and fewer scares, except for classics like The Twilight Zone and Tales from the Crypt. That said, the best horror shows from the 1990s began to explore mixing genres, with The X-Files bridging the gap between science fiction and horror. While many of the best horror shows of all time are from the 1990s, some from the last 2 decades are fantastic. Horror has become more creative over the past couple of decades, pushing the boundaries of the genre and changing the game for future series writers. The Walking Dead revitalized the zombie genre and became a phenomenally successful franchise. The Haunting of Hill House modernized the classic ghost story formula for a new audience, and Stranger Things pays homage to the works of Stephen King and 1980s horror. Many of the recent horror TV shows are scarier than any horror movie, though some are just as cinematic, with Hannibal being as beautiful as it is disturbing. Hannibal is one of the best, and most stylish, horror TV shows. The story is a prequel to The Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal in the iconic salmon shirt. Created by Brian Fuller, Hannibal is one of the most unusual horror shows to be made, as it is both stylish and terrifying. The outfits and food styling are just as impressive as those in a period drama, and at times, Hannibal appears to be shot like a romance. Focusing on small glances between the characters, lines loaded with double meanings, and details hidden in the scenery, the show is extremely subtle, until it chooses not to be. Hannibal does not try to force the audience to be afraid, but lets each disturbing murder tableau speak for itself. Hannibal Lecter's story already has several installments, with The Silence of the Lambs being the best-known part of the saga. Hannibal is a prequel to the events of The Silence of the Lambs, taking place before Hannibal is arrested for his cannibalistic murders. NBC's series centers on the troubled detective, Will Graham, and his boss, Jack Crawford, who would then become Clarice Starling's supervisor in The Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal starred Mads Mikkelsen in the title role that was most famously portrayed in films by Anthony Hopkins. Mads Mikkelsen gives one of horror's great TV performances. Hannibal strikes a balance between beauty and horror. Mads Mikkelsen in promotional image for Hannibal with bones and flowers in front of him. Mads Mikkelsen taking on the role of the iconic Hannibal Lecter defied concerns that the Danish actor would be unable to match Anthony Hopkins' iconic performance. Even Mikkelsen wasn't sure about playing Hannibal, but the show became one of his best performances. Mikkelsen made the role his own, giving a more subtle version of the character that emphasized his charm and mannerisms, and making the Hannibal TV show a very different kind of horror compared to Hopkins' movies. Mikkelsen's interpretation of Dr. Lecter gave us one of the greatest horror TV performances of all time. Until relatively recently, horror was not usually the most aesthetically pleasing of genres, often focusing on jump scares, gore, and the grotesque. Hannibal was still grotesque and disturbing, but it stood out for its cinematic style, dream sequences, and improbable arrangements of the crime scenes. Hannibal's most shocking deaths were still horrific, but often filmed in a similarly indulgent way to the food. The Flesh Angel episode in Hannibal Season 1 was an early example of just how far the series could go in terms of combining body horror with art. Hannibal was a big part of horror TV's resurgence. Hannibal was an incredibly difficult concept to pull off. Hannibal's Stag Heartman from Primavera. Horror has had an incredibly successful decade in terms of TV shows, and Hannibal had a major part in this. Hannibal's focus on character development and subtle moments that did not include horror, like Bella's tragic death, rather than jump scares, elevated it to the level of other popular shows like Mad Men. The cinematography gave it a stylish and polished look, inspiring other writers to treat the genre in a different way. This influence can be seen in shows like Yellow Jackets, which, like Hannibal, also includes several haunting scenes involving antlers and cannibalism. Hannibal was not a ratings success for NBC, but it became a cult hit and one of Mads Mikkelsen's best TV shows. That said, Hannibal rebooting an established franchise headed by an already iconic character is a difficult feat. Replacing Hannibal's actor was a risk, but it paid off, with the actors giving equally good but very different interpretations. The decision to swap the sexes of some of the main characters, like Alan Bloom, who became Alana, could have been controversial, but was barely noticed in context. The strength of horror TV should lead to Hannibal Season 4. Will Hannibal Season 4 happen? The success of shows like Yellow Jackets and The Haunting of Hill House shows that there is still great demand for compelling horror with as much character writing as scary scenes. As Hannibal is a prequel, it was always clear that Hannibal had survived after the end of Hannibal Season 3. That said, there is plenty of room for another series before the events of Silence of the Lambs. CBS's unsuccessful TV show Clarice, about Clarice Starling after The Silence of the Lambs, only lasted one season. Hannibal Season 4 could provide an opportunity to revisit Clarice Starling, which was Brian Fuller's plan had his series continued. As it stands, there is no confirmation that Hannibal's season 4 will take place, but Mads Mikkelsen has made it clear that he would like to return if the opportunity arose. In an interview with Business Insider, Mikkelsen revealed that Hannibal's creator, Brian Fuller, has not ruled out the possibility. That said, he and Mikkelsen are aware that timing is a factor. Mikkelsen said, "It's no secret that all of us who were part of the cast and Brian, we all want to go back. It's got to happen eventually, sooner than later because we're not getting any younger, right?